Really need to talk.
Chair Randall, if you're
Hi.
okay, we'll start the.
Yeah, let's do, is you guys ready yet?
No, it's loading.
Slowly. I don't have my glasses on, which means I cannot see a thing. The level of which I cannot see without my glasses is epic.
I don't need to try anymore.
Now we are good? Okay, I'm going to call to order the Governance Personnel Committee meeting of the Northern Transportation Authority for Thursday, October 9th, 2025. I will make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from September. I'm assuming everyone looked over those minutes. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Thank you, Chair Jefferson, a second the motion, discussion on that motion. Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion will pass unanimously. 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, unanimously. We are going to go to the discussion items, which yes, Ms. Backman and Ms. Bain are discussion items. Let's discuss.
Let's discuss.
Let's discuss.
So before you in the packet is what I would say is our first true draft or redraft of our legislative priorities for 2026 and a little bit of wordsmithing and updating numbers in the opening paragraph about protecting our dedicated revenue sources. That certainly stays the same. And again, it is protecting what we have and not and opposing any legislation that would seek to create any set asides, frankly, or direct us to have to spend it in a specific way. Right now, it's 30% goes back to localities. That we don't know changes there. 70% comes back to the regional fund, which you all, per your policies and goals and vision and mission, distribute that. I mean, want nothing to ever interfere.
And if they even thought about changing it, they'd have to open up the legislation completely.
Yes,
Right.
yeah, it's an amendment to our current code
Yeah.
section. So that stays, again, we will always, have on the list restoring the 38.5 million. Not that they're counting or anything, but and then there is a slot that I put in, and this wording will change, but again, we have as a region, through a number of different organizations, we are talking about dedicated operating and capital funding for transit, which means local bus systems, Virginia Railway Express, and WMATA. And I think one, to remember that it's all of those, it's not just WMATA, but we are awaiting some final sort of set of recommendations. So that's the new blue section on page 2 of that document. So this is somewhat of a placeholder, but it does get to what we have been discussing over this last 12 months, either through SJ 28, which Northern Virginia Transportation Commission is staffing and handling and wrangling that committee. Living and breathing, and the DMV moves process, which some of you are part of. And again, it's supposed to be looking at what are the, I would say, verified, structured funding gaps for both operating and capital. And then we in Northern Virginia, well, as what comes to WMATA, there'll be a number that we as Virginia will have to figure out what to pay for, hopefully keeping the state and local partnership. And then for VRE and our local bus systems, as they are now coming forth with identifying what their capital and operating funding needs are and identifying what that gap is, that's going to be vetted through SJ 28. We will have at some point a goal around that. We also have the issue on the WMATA side regarding, as you might recall, when we secured state funding to help pay for the FY25, FY26 funding gap. We also said we're going to took a temporary release from 3% annual increase on the subsidy just for 2 years. It is supposed to be coming back in 2027. my understanding is the discussion of what that looks like, how that the cap is defined and what it looks like is being discussed at DMV moves, because its idea is hopefully to come up with something that Maryland, Virginia, and DC will all.
Yeah, that is the goal.
I think we're, it's being very clear, we're gonna count on NVTC as they're already putting together their legislative agenda. They have some initial language to address these key issues, because we're gonna need them to vet what we see out of DMV moves, if it actually does work for Virginia, for local bus, BRE, and WMATA. There's a structural funding gap in terms of Virginia funding for Metro that will also have to be addressed. So this is a bit of a placeholder. Probably SJ 28 and DMV moves will be finalizing their work in the November, December timeframe.
The plan is the November meeting.
November meeting, right? So I will likely come back with some specifics, which will echo language you'll see at NVTC and other organizations. We're all going to try to use the same verbiage and have the same. But again, we also will need to talk about, the world is very different now than what it was when we all started down this path. And so there will need to be a discussion amongst stakeholders, at least on the Virginia side. DC and Maryland have their own financial problems, but on the Virginia side, for us to determine what we think we have to have adopted in 2026 and what we can continue to spend time on developing, maybe some possible alliances with other regions who may have some of their own transportation funding desires. Like I talked about Hampton Roads our last meeting. And while I-81 is developing their next set of projects for improvements in I-81, and that's going to be based on their current sort of funding sources, there's no question that if they could find a way to have more money, they would take it.
I-81's funding sources have never really come to the fruition we thought there was. I mean, the money they thought we were going to get, that never happened.
Well, on the fuels tax side, it has. That has actually pretty much met the capacity, like us on the Interstate Operations Enhancement Program. We still aren't at $20 million a year.
Right. So I have just a couple of questions, committee members, if you don't mind. So, and committee members, I actually want your opinion on this. So everybody, I sit on DMV moves, Mr. McKay, you both sit on it. But you're right, the world is so different right now than it was a year ago. And we know that as Virginia is one of the 10 states in the country that does Medicaid administration and SNAP administration, we know that the General Assembly is going to be trying to come up with funding gaps from federal funding gaps. Do you think it would be worth it or even wise in the DMV moves to offer some verbiage in addition to whatever numbers we come up with that says something to the effect of DMV moves will not support any money to fund transit coming from any other regional or state body. I'm trying to put it in people's heads right now from more than one source, from DMV moves, from MVTA, from MVTC, that our money is not to be done again. And 1 year ago, I would have felt really comfortable that wasn't going to happen again. But 1 year later, knowing the possible funding shortfalls from SNAP, from Medicaid, because we administer that, knowing that the counties themselves are going to be responsible for $16.2 million. That number right? Somewhere right there, around there, 60-something $million. 16, not 60, 16. So I think I am more worried this year about this happening again than I was last year. That I am more worried now.
No, I'm actually really appreciative of this, because if that ends up the census, that's one thing that we can also put into our legislative agenda.
And I think
that explicit is just
net new money would be.
Yeah, that it cannot come from existing funding
and has to be net new money.
Yeah.
If the committee agrees with that, I would really appreciate the staff to help with some verbiage. If do you guys have any thoughts on that, or do you have an objection? You have thoughts? Committee members?
I don't have any objections. I agree.
Then I would like some.
Nice, but now,
Yeah,
absolutely.
then I wouldn't mind some verbiage to introduce it now, whether they'll do it or not, I don't know, but this is one of these moments that I think DMV Move should, I think MBTC should, I think MBTA should, and truthfully, I think every locality should. Every locality from which that money comes, because once they did that, once they took money from MBTA, it impacts every MBTA locality. So.
And Madam Chair, if I could add, when the funds were diverted in 2018, we weren't doing out-year funding programs like we are now. And there is not only an expectation, localities and agencies who receive this funding are using our funding to leverage other funding sources. So any diversion not only disrupt what we have have executed standard project agreements, but projects that we've approved that don't have those agreements executed. I know at the DMV Moves Government Partners Advisory Group, which Brian Hill, the county executive from Fairfax, chairs, we've said and no taking of MBTA money, but I think sometimes people hear, and then as the closer we get to having to make a decision, what's the low hanging fruit? And we want to avoid.
Now, the other difference, of course, is that when that happened last time, it was an MBTA member from the House of Delegates who really pushed that forward. This time, thank God, we have a different MBTA member from the House of Delegates and a different MBTA member who is from the Senate. So we have support in the bodies themselves that we not only that we didn't have before, but it was like literally opposite direction. I mean, he literally did put that in there. But I really do think we have to be very proactive because the money because it's a different world that we're living in today than last time. Michelle Davis Younger. I mean, Mayor Davis Younger. Legal name. Yes, Mom.
I'm good. No, like you were saying, a year ago, different, and now not. The uncertainty and how everything's getting attacked and pulled. Be small.
Yep, I know.
Chair Randall, for you and the committee to back up what Ms. Backlund said, you started to use these terms. You are managing a 17-year funding pipeline that is now valued in the billions.
Mhm.
Those are your data points. So we're committed to funding, come July, we will be committing to funding projects out to 3031. That's the 17 years because we have projects that were approved in 15 that are still actively in ongoing. Obviously, the fiscal 15 money is in the bank, but fiscal 27 through 31 will be adopted based on the expectation of the revenues as it's currently structured.
And that's talking points for Ms. Backman, Ms. Baynard, and I when we go down to Richmond. But if I could have verbiage, and if that verbiage can be clear yet generic enough that it can be used by everybody, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, and I'm Kate Mattice with NBTC, and so this is fantastic because we also lost our gas tax when that happened at the same time. Smaller volume, smaller levels of dollars, but in the work that's going on with SJ28 right now, the focus is on looking at statewide and potentially a new regional revenue source. And also for the benefit of the jurisdictions, there's also even the potential of that new revenue source being able to reduce the locality's use of their general funds and even potentially 30% funds. So thankfully, there has not been any discussion around the SJ28 table. And I think honestly, you have a member who's sitting, we have a really good representation of the folks who are on SJ28. It is all about new, and not about taking from any of the existing pots, and such that potentially, again, there'd be a relief to local general funds in their what they're using right now to pay for their public transit. So I hope, my faith is that the SA 28 efforts are going in the right direction, and they're in a fairly influential spot for the General Assembly.
Do you plan, who does, I know Monica, you do, but do you all plan to come to the DMV Moves meeting?
Yes.
I know you do. I'm gonna try it. Getting clear, because I wanna. This last one where you guys are.
Yeah.
Nitty gritty. But certainly I will craft some language and we will work with METC, so we have the same language that speaks to net new. Net new funding, net new funding, net new funding.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I appreciate that.
I will be the person who offers a slightly alternative perspective,
Oh,
fully in support of the concept.
okay.
It is more of, at this moment in time, I think that it's a little premature for me as someone who serves on appropriations to make the call on like what we will do and what we won't do about anything that is coming before the General Assembly at this moment. I recognize the intention of the language, and I think that there are many members of the House and the Senate delegation who completely agree, myself included. It's just,
Would
I
you
just
like
don't
us to
know.
take a formal vote so you can abstain on it, or would you like us to just?
That would be good for me.
That would
Thank
be
you.
helpful for you to just abstain, okay.
Yeah.
So then I'm going to make this information item a motion, an action item now. And the action item will be that language is crafted that requests that no money, that only net new money is used are for financing of any transit in Virginia, and and that's enough. You guys can take
That's
it.
enough, yeah.
Okay, that's enough. Okay, you get my drift. All right, so that's my motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Well, seconded by Mayor David Young. All in favor, to say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention?
One.
Okay. That motion has 401 with
Great.
delegates who are abstaining on the motion. Okay?
Thank you.
That's our motto, net new money.
Right.
No problem.
Yeah, so we are removing the short and long-term financing for operational stability for Metro, because that's now a more multi-faceted transit. Protecting Virginia's dedicated funding, although I don't think we're having a problem with that this upcoming session. And then the effective transportation technology, just shortening that a bit. And then the other one we're gonna take out is just the background piece. So we'll clean this up, write the new language for us to take a look at our November meeting. Hopefully there's there'll definitely be some additional clarity by that meeting. So we'll fill in some of the details on the transit side and for us to discuss, and then share with you sort of what discussions occur between now and then regarding what are our goals for the 2026 session, because at some point we actually need to have a strategy and goals to start implementing. Session starts January 14th, everybody. I'm just gonna start screaming. The other piece is the FOIA Council took final action on Senate Bill 897 from Senator Evan. This was the bill that started out as a mandate that a public body may not vote on an item added to its agenda after the meeting started. That's a lot of words. So the FOIA Council voted 10-2 on the version that is in your packet.
What?
Yeah, in your packet is the version of the bill that they approved in a 10-2 vote.
Oh, a 10-2 vote.
Sorry. And essentially, it didn't change a lot, but they are, so essentially it says, and that's the language in blue and red on page 2 of that document. You shall post your agenda, which you all do. No final action can be taken on any item added to your agenda after the meeting starts. We can't take final action on it. And then they define what is not final action. So that's lines 45 through 51. Final action does not include referral to a committee or advisory body, referral to a future meeting for action,
Okay.
direction to staff to provide further information, issuance of a commending or memorial proclamation. Those are all exempted from that action. So if you had a proclamation that didn't end up coming to you until after your agenda had been published, you could still add it to that and vote on it.
And anything that's gonna sent to any other body,
You could vote on it.
okay.
The action to send it to the body,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
can act on. There was a fairly extensive effort coming out of local government to add to this list actions taken by advisory committees or advisory commission. And 10 members of the FOIA council were not buying it. Their position was they are by localities in their testimony are places where citizens are invited to provide advisory information. And the citizens need to understand what they're discussing. So this version of the bill, as I said, was adopted by the full council on 10-2. Someone will be will volunteer or be appointed to be a patron. And this bill will be introduced in the 2026 session in this version.
Okay.
Doesn't mean there won't be other versions,
Right.
but this version is the one that will have the supported by the FOIA council.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So I'm sorry, I heard what you said, but the front part, when you said, what about advisory committees?
So,
What are they-
those local governments were advocating that in this list of the exemptions from final action that would not count. That
Advisory committee?
advisory committees,
Would not count?
well, that was a recommendation that your advisory, that if a final action, if the advisory committee was meeting.
Yeah.
And they added an item to their agenda. After the meeting started, they would have been allowed to still take a final vote at that meeting. And that was, no, so that's not in the bill.
Okay, thank you.
Well, actually, it's better, that came out better than I expected, right?
Yeah, so,
Right.
but so that's what is going on there. As again, pre-filing starts November something, 4th or so. No, actually, sooner than, right after that, anyway. Pre-filing of bills, House still doesn't have bill limits.
Not as of yet.
Crazy, but the Senate does.
Well, they're not on the ballot.
Should be
I like to
honest.
get some rules, you know?
That was a fun year, man. Not as of yet, not until November 5th.
Yeah. So we'll start seeing some bills trickle in, probably more in December and then
Yeah.
deluge. But again, session starts later than usual because of the calendar. So it's the second Wednesday in January, which just happens to be January 14th, which is a really late start.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's been a
And then the new.
been a time since we started.
Going into January 19th, correct?
No, long session. So we'll go through March 14th, I think it is, the second Saturday.
Oh, so when was she-
Inauguration, 19th.
Yeah, that's Sunday, the 20th,
20th.
January 20th was the inauguration.
That's also MLK Day.
Uh-huh. It does happen occasionally.
Okay, interesting.
Yes. Any other questions at this point? I mean,
That's very good.
we'll have some tweaking of committee memberships.
Yeah.
Feel like,
Yeah. Sure.
So that'll be.
Any other questions by any committee members? Okay, motion to adjourn, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion on the motion to adjourn? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned, thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could know, we're gonna take the authority photo prior to the start of the meeting.
That's where you're gonna take the